Today, a suit was filed by a John Doe 26 against the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis and Father Jerome C. Kern, K-E-R-N. Kern is a serial offender that we have identified no less than 10 victims so far, and that over the years multiple reports were made to top Archdiocese officials regarding his abuse of youth. Promises were made to moms and to kids that something would be done and he would be removed. Instead, those promises made were broken, and they were lied to, and they were deceived, and they were misled. And Kern was thus moved to 5 parishes, 4 of which he abused at. The saga of Kern's abuse and the cover-up of it began in the late 60s, and at that time, 2 kids whose names we have permission to use, and one who is here today, who's now an adult, and his name is Jamie Hutmaker. And he and his friend, Charlie Turning, reported that their priest at St. Mark's in St. Paul had violated them by abusing them to their moms. And both of their moms wrote to the then top official, the Archbishop. And what then happened was that it was also reported to law enforcement, and in response to that, Kern was moved by then the Archbishop to another parish, Our Lady of Grace in Edina, where he was entrusted with the care of souls there. And Al Michaud was one of those kids and one of those souls.
In the summer of 1969, Charlie Turning and I were taken to a location with Father Kern. We reported that the next day to our parents, what had occurred. Our parents went to the parish at the time, St. Mark's, talked to the parish about what had happened. Our parents also reported this to the St. Paul Police Department, and basically Father Kern was moved, as Mr. Anderson said. And then some years later, when some of this abuse came up, my parents, my mother and Charlie's parents, went down to the Archdiocese and talked to, I believe it was Kevin McDonough and somebody else, talked to them about that, ended up getting a letter from Father Kern.
After Father Kern was moved to Immaculate Heart of Mary, I came in contact with him during a scouting Boy Scout outing, and I put it away. It happened, the event happened, I put it away. Years later, it was brought back up again, and when it came back up, I decided that I could either put it away again, or I had to come forward because he was still out there, and as far as I knew, he was still abusing kids. So I came forward, and I first approached Father Tim Powers at Pax Christi in Eden Prairie, who all I knew of the name was Father Jerry. I didn't know anything else. But Father Powers helped me identify who he was, and put me in contact with Kevin McDonough at the Archdiocese. So I contacted Kevin McDonough and went forward, and he had me meet with him there and sat down with Kevin McDonough, and he had a file in front of him, opened it up, and Kevin McDonough started crying right away, sobbing. I mean, I was taken aback. He was sobbing. And he opened up the file and he said, "This is going to piss you off." Again, Kevin McDonough's words that I'll never forget. But he started going through Father Kern's file and he said, he brought up Jamie and Charlie. He brought up a couple of other individuals that they had the file on. He kept going through his file of Father Kern. And every once in a while, he'd just go back to crying again. And, wailing and gnashing of teeth is what I remember. I was like, oh my God. But after this was done, after he presented this to me, he said, "Give me a couple weeks, call me back, and we'll figure out what we can do from here." And so I took him at his word, and I gave him a couple of weeks, and I called him back, and he goes, "Now who is this, and what's this about again?" And I again told him my name, and I told him who this was in regard to, and he says, "You're going to have to find other channels to go through to resolve this." And at that point, I had seen stories from Jeff in the paper. I knew he was who I was going to call, so I got in contact with Jeff Anderson and said, "Here's the story, here's the deal, and here's what happened. Here's what Father McDonough said." So, doesn't end there. Our lawsuit went forward. It was put in the paper. My name was put in the paper. The accusations against Kern, and I will stop using the moniker Father because I'm not going to give him that. It was in the paper. Michaud, blah, 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 Jerry Kern. So a couple of weeks after that happened, I got a call from a friend who was a parishioner at Immaculate Heart of Mary, and they said, "You're not going to believe this, but Archbishop Roach came to church today and stood up with Father Kern and said, 'We need to pray for this poor misguided soul, Michaud, because he obviously is remembering something that is wrong and that didn't happen, and is accusing poor Father Kern of things that Father Kern did not do. So we need to pray again for this poor, misguided soul.'" And that's when I sat there and, you've got to be kidding me. If there's another thing I remember is the deposition that they put me through. The questions they asked me, the way they treated me during that was degrading and humiliating. And I had to put up with it. I couldn't do anything other than answer their questions. And then I went through Father Kern's deposition. I had to sit on my hands and not say anything, but in turn, he turned it around and he accused me. He was the one that accused me of coming on to him. I was the one who initiated sexual advances towards him. That was his deposition. So time went on, the lawsuit got settled, but we sat in an office and all their lawyers apologized up and down. The settlement was made, and the promise was also made that Jerry Kern would not be allowed in ministry again. Promise was made to me that Jerry Kern would not be allowed in ministry again. And we know that that's not true. We know that they didn't keep up their bargain on that.
That promise that was made to you, when that was settled, was 1994, wasn't it now?
I believe so.
That he would not be in ministry again and around kids.
Right. That was a promise that was made to me. One of many promises that they've made, but so we know that that's not true. Father Kern was in ministry up until 2002. So, remembering back and remembering Kevin McDonough sitting there with his file and crying and sobbing and folding through these papers and telling me all these instances of abuse that they have on file that he sat there in front of me and had with them, and crying and sobbing and telling me the story, telling me that I should be pissed off. Well, yes, I am pissed off. But they had a file on Father Kern. Now, do you have that file, Jerry? Or do you have that file?
I have some of that file. In your case, they turned over some documents, but not all the documents. And they withheld documents, and they withheld information that we have since learned was not turned over at the time it was supposed to have been.
Now, I heard Kevin McDonough say that he has a clear conscience, that he did everything right, and he wouldn't do anything different. But I'm here to tell you that he didn't. I don't want another kid hurt. I don't want anybody else abused because people aren't doing their jobs. Because people of supposed faith are doing the wrong thing. Charlie and Jamie were abused in 1969, and they came forward with evidence to the Archdiocese, to the parish, to everybody else, to the police. But I was abused in 1977. Why? Because they did nothing. Because they covered it up and they shuffled him around. They made a promise to me that he would not be in ministry anymore, and he still is, still was. How many people did he abuse after me? Thank you.
We really put pictures of the top officials that really were involved here, and each of them played a role in misleading, deceiving, lying, and withholding the truth, and taking actions to protect the reputation. And of course, Archbishop John Roach is now deceased, but he's very active in making sure that he appeared at the parish and called Al Michaud a liar.
Called me a liar.
And he's the same one that said that if people should pray for you as a lost soul.
Poor misguided soul.
Or misguided soul. Archbishop Carlson, now in St. Louis, was a Vicar General Chancellor and a top official that was involved in the handling of the transfer of Kern and had this information. And he was also involved in the concealment of a number of other offenders in addition to Kern throughout these years. He's now presiding Archbishop in St. Louis. His role in this is prominent, as prominent as it is revolting. And Kevin McDonough, and as Al has so painfully recounted here, our exhortation and invitation to survivors who have been abused by clergy and others are to come forward to the St. Paul Police or whatever police agency is involved. St. Paul Police have already announced that they want it to investigate matters no matter when, where, or how, and now is a time to break the silence, preserve your privacy, but do something to protect other kids and begin the healing. And to you, Jamie, and you, Al, and your families, and Charlie Turning, who isn't here, we're deeply grateful. Thank you all.